Hello, and welcome to another episode of eDiscovery Chicks, the podcast about all things eDiscovery and legal tech, hosted by two gals who are leaning into their anger issues this year. We're your hosts. That's Bree.
And that's Angie. And this just makes me angry. No, I'm just kidding.
We've been recording for 10 seconds and I've already pissed you off.
I know. Well, before we dive in a little bit deeper to whatever issues we're we're dealing with, let's talk about today's episode. Like my kid likes to know what's for dinner or any meal, actually, beforehand, because this is going to determine his mood or his anger issues, perhaps, um, for the day. And so my favorite thing to tell him is that we're having broccoli salad. And he's like, Mom, we are not having broccoli salad for breakfast. I'm like, well, pretty much anything else is better than that, isn't it? So that's what today's episode is. Today is broccoli salad. We're talking about identification and preservation, not because it's sexy, but it's the difference between we've handled this like adults and why we're actually explaining auto delete settings to a judge. We're going to keep it practical, how to figure out where the evidence actually lives, what to lock down first, and small operational moves that cut spoliation. But before we get to that, this is our first episode of season 3. Can you believe we're on our third year? That's amazing. And we haven't talked since New Year. So how's it going?
I'm doing great. Let's see. So we in my family, we celebrate Christmas. And so this year, Santa got my daughter a 5-foot diameter trampoline complete with cage. And then all of my drunk friends and family assembled this in our living room on Christmas Eve.
And totally safe.
Totally safe. And it's too big to move out of our living room. Like physically can't move it out of there without disassembling it. So I now have a trampoline in my living room. And no, it's not big enough for me to jump on. So no fun for me. Just my toddler.
That's awesome.
How are your holidays?
My holidays were kind of a mixed bag. We did go on our road trip that we were talking about at the end of last year. So that was fun. We went from Texas to New Mexico and we got to see all kinds of crazy things.
Did you see the biggest pistachio?
I drove by Pistachio Land where they have this huge pistachio outside so you can see it. I did not have time to go on the pistachio wine tour, which honestly is something I'm going to have to go back to do.
I'm sorry, pistachio wine?
No, they have like a vineyard and they also grow pistachios. They could have pistachio wine. I don't know. That kind of sounds fun.
This is sort of how like we started just milking everything, like macadamia nuts or whatever.
There's probably pistachio milk too.
Did somebody start making can you make wine out of anything?
Probably. I think it's kind of technically moonshine, but we could call it wine.
Sure.
It's fine. It sells better that way. Sure. No, but so we didn't do that part. We decided to go to the White Sands and spend more time there, which was freaking amazing. And there's all these things about the White Sands National Park that's there. It looks like snow, but it's like the kind of sand that it is. It doesn't get too hot or too cold. So you're literally in the middle of the winter. Everybody's like in winter clothes, but everybody has their shoes off because you can like run around in the sand and it's super comfortable. And there's all these theories, philosophies about the healing powers and spiritual powers of the sands, right? I mean, this is New Mexico, so everything's a little trippy. So I was like,
sands are just like crushed up acid,
right? So I was like, I don't know about all this crazy talk. I will tell you, I have arthritis in my feet because I'm a grandma and I walked around barefoot in those sands. My feet have never felt better. I was like, oh my God, I need to package the sand up and like have it in my backyard in a big sand pit and just go in there like naked. Maybe I'll come out feeling amazing. Like, this is awesome. Anyway, it was a beautiful, beautiful time, but it was super crowded. So, like, if you ever go to White Sands National Park, do not go the day after Christmas, but it was still fun. And then, yeah, we saw snow, we saw cotton, we saw lots of wind turbines. We saw a mammoth dig site. We saw all kinds of stuff. We were in Santa Fe for Christmas Eve. It was beautiful. We went to Prairie Dog Town. Who knew there was such a thing? And now I want a prairie dog because they're so freaking cute. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. And now we're back into the new year, trying to get back into the groove. And it's a little rough, I'm gonna tell you. My brain is a
Um,
little tired.
yeah, I think I fully just like forgot how to leave the house, like in a structured way. The final boss of all Mondays, I think, is the Monday after New Year's. And I was just like, so sorry, I have to like, what goes in my purse again? Like, okay, all right. And how do I drive a car? Like, I just,
Speaking of a car, by the way, you'd be very proud of this. So, in my family, my husband usually does a lot of the driving. But we realized right away that when you have to drive for hours and hours and hours of your life and time is of the essence, the person that has a, I don't know, obsessive compulsive fascination with efficiency, maybe we should say, that
lowest
person.
tolerance for bullshit.
Okay, that, that person should be the person driving. So we swapped, and man, I made some headway, but I'll tell you what, I had to rely on that cruise control because at some point I looked down and I was going 120 miles per hour, and I was like, "Oh, I forgot I wasn't in a go-kart, and I have to, like, not put pedal to the metal, and I also have to use my brake."
I'm
Yes, you would have been proud.
so proud. I love that so much. And I also agree, whenever we have to get somewhere in any kind of a timely fashion, right? I drive. Actually, I drive almost all the time because I don't know if it's that I'm overly critical or he's actually a bad driver, but when I'm in the passenger seat, I go full possum. Like I just pretend I'm dead because it's the only way I can like deal with it.
Oh my god. Well, it's funny because when my husband drives, I do the same thing. I'm like, I don't go dead, but I have, like, other tasks. Like, so I'm putting on my makeup, or I'm doing research, or I brought my laptop. There has to be something to divert my attention because if there's not, then he gets all irritated with me because I'm the backseat driver.
And
But,
that's when your anger issues come out. Full
there y
circle to the beginning of the
there
episode.
you
Let's
go.
go.
That just makes me angry.
It just makes me my therapist was dead ass like, "So you seem really comfy with anger." And I was like, Yeah, uh-huh. She's like, "Are you interested in fixing that?" And I was like, "No." Like, I kinda like it that way.
Like, we were talking about this right before we came on air, but I think that there are some benefits with people that are comfortable with anger. I mean, I can handle an angry customer really well because 'cause I'm like, "Bro, I feel your pain, and in fact, I would like to trip out just like you're tripping out right now." But
Let me
we're
meet you
not.
where you're at emotionally.
Right. Like, you
Let's
don't
rile
scare
each
me.
other up.
Exactly.
Can I be petty?
Of course, always.
Oh, okay, great. So, I've got this friend, I love her, but she will sometimes say things like use phrases the wrong way. She's the one who says devil's avocado instead of devil's advocate. Um, but the other day, she was like, "I got this new foundation, jury's out, I love it." And I was like, "Wait, the jury's out or you love it?" And she was like, "No, like the jury's out, they deliberated, they came back, and I love it." And I was like, "Oh, no, queen. No. It's either the jury is out and they are still deliberating, or the jury has come back and now you have a verdict."
Oh my
And she was
goodness.
like, I don't know." So I told my husband this story and he goes, "No, actually, like, I'm with her. Like, that makes sense." And I was like, "I'm gonna blow a gasket. Are you serious?"
That's hilarious.
And they've been fucking with me for like 5 days. They keep texting me this. I'm like, "You don't understand how angry this actually makes me." Well, like, "Can you do it when I'm on a run so that I have some inspiration to run
That's
faster?"
hilarious. I love that they're giving you a hard time about it.
Oh, it drives me nuts. And they just,
Oh god. I'm
uh
probably more on your friend's side where I'm, like, always saying things wrong. I have to ask my husband all the time, "Wait, is that the right word that I'm supposed to be using there?" He's like, "Oh my god." Do you have songs, by the way, that you, like, misunderstood the lyrics and, like, every time that you hear it, you cannot hear anything else except for like, I was thinking about this over Christmas because there's 2 Christmas songs we have that are "Walking in My Winter Underwear." Walking in my winter underwear, and then, there's Gloria in Excel sheets, Deo. So, I'm like, I didn't know Gloria was into Microsoft. Um, but I can never hear those songs without thinking of the incorrect way. Or like my college roommate thought that Jimmy Buffett's "Looking for My Lost Shaker of Salt," she thought it was "Looking for My Outlaw Shaker of Salt." So I'm like, that is I mean, we're country, but we're not that country.
Yeah. Okay, well, should we talk about eDiscovery?
I
Give the
guess.
people what they're here for.
Broccoli salad.
Broccoli
Uh
salad.
All right. So we actually are going to be carrying through an episode that we did. It was our second episode of our first
Ever.
season. Yeah, our second episode ever. We're trying to add on to that, right? And that episode was all about identification and preservation. If you'll recall, back in our first season, we went through the entire EDRM model and we went step by step. So this is at the left side of the EDRM model, right after the InfoGov wheel. This is going to be the first thing that anybody needs to be thinking about when that trigger starts the whole EDRM workflow. And when we talk about identification, first of all, we're talking about who is involved, what is involved, meaning who are my employees or who are the people, who are the custodians, what are the data sources, the systems, what's the time frame, what actions were taking place, what needs to be considered. We're trying to identify, scope it all out.
Yeah, so we thought it was high time we revisited this topic because some shit's changed in the last 2 years since we recorded that episode. We got some new data sources, we've had new guidance from various government agencies, and we just thought a refresher would be a lovely way to kick off 2026. All right, so when we talk about kicking off your identification and preservation endeavors, a lot of people start by asking, well, when do I have to even do that? And the answer to that question is I was going to say fairly simple, but it's kind of not. The answer to that question is when you reasonably anticipate litigation. Um, and that can mean a number of different things in a number of different contexts. It can be you get a demand letter or a preservation letter, or a catastrophic accident happens and your company is potentially responsible for part of it. This can look a number of different ways. But some organizations will fall into this trap of, well, we're still investigating. We don't really know. And so we're not going to start this whole process yet. And that can really be a very risky lullaby to sing to yourself because the legal standard requires you to kick off this process earlier than a lot of organizations realize. And one way that organizations typically will start the identification phase is by reviewing their data map. And data maps can look a number of different ways. One example of that is a dynamic, kind of evergreen version of a data map where you have a third-party software that plugs into all of your systems and pulls data from them and creates a data map. Another option, though, is to have a simple spreadsheet. And a lot of organizations do this, particularly if their eDiscovery programs are less mature. But the data map spreadsheet is kind of risky in and of itself because it's outdated kind of the moment that it's done, the moment processes change or a new workflow is adopted. So I just want to flag that before we really get into the meats of identification. And with that, I'm
Yeah.
going to do a very awkward handoff to you, Bree.
Well, you said data map, which got me all excited. So
Oh, yeah. I saw your eyes go wide. You were like, oh, yeah,
Mhm. Did you
say
say
more.
data map? Uh, but no, I get excited about data map because I foresee with my fortune telling crystal ball that I have in front of me in the future, this will be a very automated process. And that's one of the places where identification and preservation has really changed or at least grown a little bit more mature since our last episode. Data mapping. And we've got tools in terms of technology that are out there today to help companies do just that. I mean, we've got privacy professionals who need to data map for data retention and, where's PII and HII and those types of concerns. We have IT systems that need to map data because they need to know where all their applications are and they have change management protocols and procedures, et cetera. We have e-discovery professionals and investigators that need to know where the stuff is. So when they need to answer or go through this e-discovery workflow or answer some sort of regulatory request or investigate some sort of potential issue, they got to know where all their stuff is. And so, yes, a lot of companies are utilizing more than just a spreadsheet anymore. They're utilizing a software program or programs to help them. And I see that this will be in the future something that will even become more automated, where we'll be scanning, systems, and we'll be keeping note of automatically and syncing with, here's all your data sources, here's where you can find where Angie might be saving whatever the secrets are that she's trying
All
to
my
hide.
nefarious material.
All the things that make her angry. So I think that that's a place to, if you're not already thinking about, like, how can we make this more automated? How can we collaborate, internally with other departments? Those should be questions that should be top of mind at this moment. I mean, not that you're going to solve that today, but it should be a priority for sure.
Yeah,
Um, are,
agreed.
so when we talk about the identification workflow, what does that entail? Well, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Traditionally, it really sat in the lap of the custodian or the employee or the people involved to guide legal professionals where to go to find potentially responsive data. The other option would also be, like, if you're doing an investigation, for example, and you can't ask the person, "Hey, where did you put all the stuff that you stole?" That would be awkward. Um, so then we have company systems and forensic tools or eDiscovery tools that help us identify where work might be. You want to make sure that you're consistent in the questions that you're asking. Do you need to have an intake process? Like, what is my typical intake process for such and such kind of request? That's probably going to look different for a regulatory request than it might look for an internal investigation, than it might look for litigation, for example. And then interviewing your custodians, be smart about this. There's technology today that will help you hone in on what exactly you're asking your custodians. You don't have to ask them like a, 150 interrogatory request of, where are all the
Oh my
things you
god,
ever
please
thought
don't.
about, being responsive. And putting together quick system checklists, and thinking of all the aspects of legal and IT and security and compliance, et cetera. Having all those workflows ready to go are really key.
I love a good checklist or a template. I think they make life so much easier. I have this theory that a lot of litigation has a fairly repeatable process. I mean, think about every e-discovery workflow. You're going to kick it off with identification preservation. And so, given that we have sort of a similar spine to our workflows, I love a checklist. I think this is so critical for organizations. Then you're not spending your mental energy reinventing the wheel every single matter. You're like, okay, these are the things that I need to get every single time. Let me think about it once and then modify as necessary on a case by case basis.
I think checklists and templates and things like that we can be repeatable with are not only smart because they're efficient, and Lord knows I like a good efficient process, but they're also
We're
more.
trying to drive 120 miles an hour through this
That's
process.
right, baby.
Yeah.
Checklists and templates and things like that, they're also the most defensible. When you go into court and you have to defend your process and why you did what you did, the best thing your judge is ever going to want to hear is like, well, this is our process. This is our policy. This is our procedure. We followed it. Like, we always follow it. That's really going to help you out. I think one key thing to remember in this preservation step is all of the internal folks that you need to cross reference with. And I think that that's a big, huge gap sometimes that organizations are faced with. I forgot to ask, the IT security about such and such system. Did you even know that you had web logs that were being scanned and that those web logs would tell you exactly what that employee did with that data? That might be something that is worth considering putting on legal hold or capturing or collecting or reviewing. Did you know that you may potentially have an employee who, committed theft or whatever, and there's printer logs that are being stored somewhere, or there's logs in Microsoft that are being stored somewhere? Your IT guys know that, or girls. So perhaps that's a conversation that you should have. It might not be a legal hold preserve in place. It might be collect it and analyze it, or plot it into a timeline to consider along with the rest of what you're dealing with. Forensics is a good example of places where people sometimes don't think to ask when it's in the identification phase. A forensic and professional is going to be able to tell you, like, hey, when we see this type of issue, did you consider this Internet of Things device that you might not have considered before? Did you consider the camera? Did you consider I don't know, the whatever, the Aura ring that Angie's wearing? Um,
No, I'm off it.
oh, are
It
you?
it gave me too much feedback about my lifestyle, so I unsubscribed.
Oh, God.
I was like, "I don't need this kinda energy in my life."
Oh, man. Get off your ass.
No, I was like, "No, I'm not gonna stop drinking wine. Stop telling me to do that. It's not realistic."
Anyway, the point being, there's also people in compliance that might have some ideas about data retention, or they might have, historic records or legacy paper records. Oh God, that
Oh.
might need to be considered. So my point is, make sure that you uncover all the rocks. And you talk to all the parties that could potentially be involved. And the best way to make sure you're doing that is to, like Angie and I are proposing, is to have a system, have a checklist, have a protocol for every time that you need to preserve data.
Oh, we're not proposing, we're ordering you to do it. Oh, wait, one I wanna yes and you on one thing there,
Oh,
which is,
bonus.
you gotta talk to people because there is a very daunting thing out there called shadow IT. And the only way you're gonna find out about it is if you talk to people. And shadow IT refers to systems or practices that operate outside of the sort of structured organizational ones. So think about the engineering team that gets annoyed about Slack's retention policy, so they override it on the back end. Or the team that decided to just like, I don't know, fuck it, download Trello and use that. And now a bunch of their data lives in there, but they didn't really tell anybody about it. So you got to talk to people, figure out how they actually work so that you make sure you're getting a comprehensive view of all the systems that are in play. All right. Preservation. Because, oh my God, Karen, you can't just tell people to preserve their emails. And so preservation. So preservation in plain English basically means stop deletion, don't alter anything, keep what exists, and document what you did.
But when we talk about preserving, we want to talk about all the different locations, data sources, people that might be involved, like we were talking about in the identification conversation just a second ago. Don't forget your mobile devices, your chat, your ephemeral messaging platforms, your meeting artifacts, your shared links. All of these things are different types of data sources that are going to have different requirements to preserve them, different requirements to analyze them. And you need to make a priority of what is the most volatile, what's the most likely to go away, versus what is the most stable. It'll be there for a minute. What's something that we can preserve automatically using automated systems, which I am a huge proponent of, and what can we not? What systems do not allow us to do that, that we need to capture right away? What are devices that somebody might have in their control that they could do something with that you cannot lock down, that you might want to pay attention to first? These are all questions to be asking yourself when you go to this preservation step. We also are going to be looking forward into the future at the shift of responsibility. In the past, it's been very dependent on people, the custodian. Hey Angie, where is your stuff? Hey Angie, you're getting the legal hold notice. You're responsible for making sure nothing goes anywhere. You need to sign on the dotted line that you promise that you're not going to purge anything. That is the way that we traditionally have handled preservation within the legal hold process. Well, more and more, this is shifting to the corporation because now your employee doesn't really even know where their data exists. If I'm chatting at people on Teams, I might not realize that number one, I might not remember all my chats on Teams, which is very likely. And then I might not realize where all of my data is being saved in SharePoint as I'm swapping out my GIFs or
Oh my God.
or my documents or whatever my bright ideas of the day are. So what are you going to say?
I mean, update, I still don't know how to use Microsoft. It's still so confusing to me.
Well, I mean, the way that Microsoft data is saved on the back end is very confusing just in general. And that's very unrealistic that any employee is going to be able to be like, oh, yes, I know every single team chat I ever had about this subject. And here are all the SharePoint links where all of the files are found that I exchanged with whoever about this. That's not going to happen. And so as we see the shift to, cloud data sources, and we see the shift of, chat apps and those types of communication, corporations are going to end up being more responsible for the location and preservation of that data than the people. And so we call them non-custodial data sources that we're concerned with a lot of times. Who needs to be responsible? Is there a business owner? Is there an IT owner? Who are the people that are locking that down? So that's something that will be trending more and more and more in the future. And then also, I already mentioned today automation, and I'm a big proponent of that. But in every single way that you can automate this process, you will be doing yourself a favor. You'll be protecting yourself. You'll be eliminating risk. You'll be saving yourself time and energy. So, lots of different ways to do that, and definitely worth your thought moving forward into 2026.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did when I was in-house and in charge of legal holds and litigation. We totally automated all of this. So it was basically an exercise of something comes in, we scoped our data sources, sent out like the same automated legal hold notice and questionnaire to all of our custodians to identify any additional custodians or data sources, things like that. But the point is, there's fairly few clicks to actually get the process underway, which allowed our pretty lean team to move through these heavy processes pretty nimbly. So, yeah, 10 out of 10, plus one, recommend automation. I wanted to pause on something that you mentioned, though, Brie, which is the effect of collaboration tools on ephemeral data, because those have really proliferated in the last couple of years. And boy, have the courts and regulators had opinions about this. So, what I mean by collaboration tools and ephemeral messaging. So that's things like your Slack, your Signal, your WhatsApp, Teams, even like iMessages or SMS messages. All of that stuff kind of falls under this bucket. And it's become a really important data source, especially in the last couple of years. So I want to run through like what a couple regulators have said about this just to underscore the importance of preserving this data. So the FTC and DOJ have since January 2024 they've updated their guidelines, and the like TLDR is turn off auto delete, preserve it, period. The end. You must take quote appropriate steps to ensure that that data is not deleted. And that can include turning off automatic deletion or even stopping the use of certain apps if it's impossible to retain the data within them. The SEC and CFTC, which are like financial services regulators, they've said something similar. But they've also like added on to the DOJ and FTC's position by saying that even off-channel communications, so books and records violations or supervision failures, all of those still fall under the organization's duty to preserve. So firms that fail to maintain and preserve those communications, even if even if they are not like organization sanctioned, that violates preservation obligations and can subject the organization to penalties or remedial undertakings. DOJ has basically agreed with this. As of September 2024, they have said prosecutors will ask whether your approach to BYOD, bring your own device, and messaging apps is reasonable and whether you can preserve communications on those devices, especially when those devices are upgraded or replaced, because failure to do so can subject organizations to sanctions up to and including dismissal of cases. So basically, all the regulators have said this is super, super important. You must do it. All right, which kind of brings me to something I want your thoughts on, Brie, which is if your policy allows ephemeral messaging, like if your organization allows that, your preservation plan really better explain how you flip that switch once your preservation obligations kick in. Agree? Disagree?
First of all, this is like one of those subjects that drives every person in legal in a corporation absolutely freaking mad, because what likely has happened is IT got a request from the business. They're like, dude, we have this cool chat app. It would make everything so much better. And in fact, there's like AI. And in fact, it's not going to save anything. It's like Snapchat. It's amazing. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden, it's done. And legal's like, what the what? Like, what did you guys do? Like, first
Legal's
of
like,
all,
back yourself up.
I know. So instead of being proactive, which of course all legal professionals would love to be, now you're reactive because you're having to deal with some crazy app that everybody has decided is going to make their life better, but you didn't you didn't foresee that someone was going to have, heinous behavior or whatever it is on this chat app.
People always have heinous behavior,
I know.
especially when they think their data will not be retained.
Right.
Oh my God. As somebody who used to do doc review, the shit people put in
Mhm.
emails
Mhm.
is
Well, I can't even believe the stuff
wild.
people put in emails because, like, I think emails are gonna stay around forever somewhere. Like, that's just my thinking. I'm like, I will never put anything in an email that I don't want everybody to know, right?
Oh my
But
God.
if you think it's, like, gonna go away, like Snap app,
That
Snapchat,
app.
then you really feel this, like, freedom to just express yourself,
Okay,
and
I have
that's
a
not always good at
confession.
work, folks, okay?
Oh, not good. I have a confession. So, I had to do doc review on this massive construction litigation case, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. And as I was going through, it was like, God, these people are flirty. Are they married? So I like look them up on whatever. And no, they're not. And then over the course of my document review, I was like, oh, they having an affair. And these
Mm.
documents were not relevant. Like I should have just moved right on. But I was like, I got really invested in the story. I was like, no, I gotta know how this ends. Like, I gotta look for these people. I set up a search. And I was like,
Oh
I
my
want to
god.
know. This is like a telenovela. This is amazing. Yeah. Anyway, they broke up. But whatever.
I mean, we laugh about this, but there are some things, and you've probably seen them, I know I have, that are very, like, traumatic. I mean, I've seen some really, really bad things in people's email and chats that make you sad because somebody's just having a hard time in their life or making terrible decisions or dealing with, crazy situations. And your heart goes out to them and it can be very traumatic. And this is not even thinking about our friends and government agencies that are looking at very traumatic
Oh God.
criminal behavior when they're doing document review. So, yeah, protect yourself because it could get crazy out there. You were asking about ephemeral messaging and what their expectations should be. And their expectation should be if you have that platform, you need to have an answer for it. Because even if it wasn't your decision, even if nobody asked legal about it, even if you don't even understand the application yourself, something's going to happen, especially on these ephemeral messaging apps, because people are always misbehaving and people are going to be people, and it's eventually going to come to you. Or even if they're not behaving in some of the ways that we're talking about, maybe they're just working. Maybe they are talking about work product that you is now part of a litigation, and you've got to go find that on a chat app. It's going to become your problem sooner or later, at my point, and you wanna have a solution for it. And sometimes the solutions are really ugly, unfortunately, which is why IT people should have their hands slapped if they are not getting legal approval when they're purchasing applications. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. We've talked about a 48-hour preservation playbook. I like the way that sounds. It makes me
I
sound
love
like
it. It's
super
so sexy.
it makes me sound so official. I have a 48-hour preservation playbook. What does that look like? What does it entail? So, one of the things we've talked about would be your standardized intake. What would be your list of go-to priorities in terms of your data sources or people, and then identifying what can be automated. Like, what can we preserve automatically as soon as we put it on a legal hold, for example.
And you can leverage your software systems like internal native preservation capabilities like Slack, Microsoft, Google. It might already be built in.
Right. I mean, you can have access to those APIs with your eDiscovery
Mhm.
software. It might be available as an add-on if you're not already taking advantage of that. You could do it all from one place. And so that's something that's really attractive in terms of efficiency and protecting yourself. So we also talked about scripting. Think about the interviews that you're asking folks whenever they get involved with a legal hold. Are you being consistent with those questions? Do you have a script for that? Have you thought about all the different scenarios that are most likely to play out in your place of business?
Oh, those scripts
Um,
are 10 out of 10.
yes. Realize, identify. I already talked about your systems list. Make sure you know what those volatile data, first response data sources are. Make sure that you understand retention settings. That's a big one that people sometimes miss because they don't understand how data retention is being done in their organization. Yes, you have a compliance department likely that's put together a data retention policy. Is it being followed? How is it being carried through? what's automatically being retained? What is IT? What are their protocols? What are their procedures? Are they in line with that policy? And how does that reflect with the data sources that you're involved with? Make sure that you have automated your legal hold process. If you have not done this, you need to do this. And if you need to be able to automatically send out legal holds, have those reminders automatically going out, have acknowledgments automatically tracked, and have all that reporting and auditing done automatically for you. And you also need
And
to have,
templatize it.
yes, templatize it all and have a method for releasing and modifying your holds cleanly. I'm going to pass it to you, Angie, for your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think two things I want to flag. First, you could have a quarterly tabletop exercise with folks just to understand and get everybody acquainted with your workflow, work out the kinks, work out the flaws, make it a little bit smoother. So I recommend a quarterly tabletop. I think it's really helpful. And then the second thing I want to flag is you don't need perfection. That is not the legal standard in any jurisdiction that I'm aware of. Rather, you need reasonable efforts. You need efforts that are proportional and appropriate for the scope of your case. And that often means you need consistent, documented steps. One other thing on that point is that some people often think that preservation relates to exporting your data and like getting it into a review platform or something. And it really doesn't have to mean that, because sometimes the lowest friction, most defensible move is to freeze your data in place within the application, meaning that if somebody tries to go and delete a Slack message, they will not be able to do that. If somebody tries to move a document to a different folder in your Google Drive ecosystem, they will not be able to do that. So sometimes that is the best way to preserve. And I want to flag that as an option for people so they don't think they have to go and like move all of their data in order to meet their legal obligations, because that's just not the case.
Well, that's really ideal, is that you would preserve it in place.
Yeah.
And one thing that Angie said that I love is the quarterly tabletop exercise. Maybe it's unrealistic that you will work in an organization that's so huge or so siloed, or people are just dang busy and not cooperative, and they're not going to do that with you quarterly. One idea might also be to interview folks. And that's what I did when I was an eDiscovery manager. I had kind of a grouping of different departments and people that I needed to collaborate with. And I went through and I'd interview them like, hey, I need an hour of your time because I'm going to run some scenarios by you and see how we would, like, what you would suggest I do, what this process would look like, what typical workflow you would follow. So I can understand what it looks like from your end. And that way I can correct anything that needs to be corrected, or I can implement anything that you're doing with what I'm doing so that we can be consistent across the board. Because you don't want to double down. If IT is already doing something that you also need to have done, then number one, you want to be aware of it, obviously, but you wouldn't take advantage of that effort already being done, or vice versa. So just take the
Yeah.
time to have some conversations.
Well, and a different side of the same coin is you also want to be a good corporate citizen and make sure you're not doing anything that unnecessarily fucks up somebody else's life or
Yes.
workflow.
Of course, I look at it like, what are you doing to screw me up? And you're
Yeah,
like, what am
it's
I
about
doing to screw
me.
you up?
Sorry, this
Uh,
is all about me. I'm the main character. Oh my God. All right, folks. That's all we've got for you today. So go forth and preserve things like an adult. Thanks for joining eDiscovery Chicks. Follow the flock on LinkedIn and Instagram and hit up eDiscoveryChicks.com for links and other goodies. If this episode made you side eye your retention settings, please share it, leave a review, or tag us on socials, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you're not learning this lesson from a sanctions motion.
Ooh.
Ooh. I thought we should end on an ominous note. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
The views we've expressed today are the eDiscovery Chicks views and don't necessarily represent the views of our employers, partners, or clients. The podcast is available solely for educational purposes, to provide general information about eDiscovery principles, and not to provide legal advice to any specific situation. It is not a substitute for legal advice from a lawyer you retained or who has agreed to represent you.